You remember the snap of silent betrayal when the person you trusted let you stand alone in a room full of voices. You felt the hollow echo of your own respect bouncing off in different walls. In that instant, you saw the subtle calculus. Respect isn't given. It's extracted by the one who refuses to plead for it. You thought you knew where you stood, until the moment you realized you'd wasted your power on empty words and feeble apologies. You tasted the bitterness of leverage lost, the cold sting of regret, and you shut your mouth because you knew no reaction means no control for them. Pain isn't a lesson. It's a signal, an alarm you turned off because you were desperate to be heard. Your silence became your weapon the moment you stopped defending every slight, every smirk, every offhand dismissal. When you stopped justifying your existence, their doubt crept in like smoke through cracked doors. You felt the tremor of authority rising from within you, uncloaked by emotion, forged in restraint. That trembling clarity is what you've been avoiding, because real power demands distance, not drama. Feel the tension tightening in your chest as you hear these words. They didn't apologize because they were sorry. They apologized because you didn't react. If you have to state your worth, you've already surrendered it. This is the paradox you've been told to ignore. Vulnerability invites exploitation. Detachment commands respect. So lean into the chill. Let cold strategy replace emotional chaos. Watch the world shift when you speak less and mean more. Subscribe if you've been silenced too long. If you're ready to abandon the fray and cultivate the storm beneath your calm. Your presence became a silent verdict the moment you stopped justifying your demand for respect. You sat at the table without begging for a seat. You stood in the hallway without explaining why you belonged in the spotlight. They scanned your face for weakness. Instead, they found calculation. A man who hears the echo of his own heartbeat and knows it's enough. A woman who meets every glance with unblinking stillness and feels the power ripple outward from her core. That subtle shift unsettles them more than any outburst ever could. Feel the weight of a deliberate pause between words. In those fractions of emptiness, you bend the narrative to your will. Watch how they fidget when you speak again, your words no longer a plea, but a decree. They lean in, expecting apology, explanation, mercy. Instead, they taste the chill of inevitability. You're not there to comfort. You're there to realign realities. You dissolve every expectation like acid on steel, leaving only the shape you choose for your presence. Recall how they once defined you. The fixer, the peacemaker, the one who smothers conflict with empty platitudes. You believed that kindness was armor, but kindness without borders is a vulnerability. You learned that a wound left unaddressed becomes a weakness worn on your sleeve. So you stopped signing messages with affection. You stopped softening your tone on calls. You stopped padding your intentions with disclaimers. You watched as your absence of concession bred confusion. That discomfort is your ally. It presses them to recalibrate. They begin to wonder how you'll strike, when you'll withdraw, what you'll demand next. Though you demand nothing, your unpredictability is your dominion. You've tasted the intoxicating clarity of ruthless self-possession. You felt the surge when they realize you're guided by principles, not feelings. You're not cold for the sake of cruelty. You're cold because emotion is an invitation to be toyed with. A storm holds power in stillness before lightning cracks the sky. So you carry thunder in your silence. Let them chase your words and come up empty. Let them crave the warmth you withhold until they recognize they have no claim on it. Your allegiance is owed only to yourself, and that revelation terrifies them more than any outburst of anger ever could. When you first tasted the power of unresponsiveness, it was like holding a lit match to their expectations. They leaned in with rehearsed lines. I miss you. I was wrong. Can we talk? Each syllable dripped with the confidence of someone used to emotional reactions. But you sat silent. Your eyes didn't soften. Your chest didn't rise with longing. In that pregnant pause, you rewrote the script. You weren't here to soothe the chaos you once embraced. You were here to dismantle it. They began to fumble. Words that once cut deep felt dull against your still frame. They scrambled for leverage, old compliments, reminders of shared history, promises of change. You let none pass your threshold. Their candles went out one by one, leaving them fumbling in darkness. You learned that absence of reply is more damaging than any harsh retort. It leaves them haunted by their own voice. Sit with that image. Them, in a room where your silence reverberates louder than their apologies. They press their fingertips to their lips, as if to muffle the echo of their own guilt. They twist messages they sent, reframe conversations in their mind, searching for a hint of your return. But you aren't returning. You rewired your instincts away from mercy. You distilled desire into detachment. Notice how their posture changes when you re-enter the room. Shoulders tighten, eyes dart. They lean forward with a mixture of caution and curiosity. They measure your step, your breath, your glance, everything suddenly charged with the threat of unpredictability. You walk without inviting their gaze. You sit without seeking connection. They want the warmth they once had. Instead, they encounter an ice wall so precise, it shatters every presumption they held about you. Recall the last time they tested your limits. They dropped a comment meant to provoke an insult dressed as a joke. You didn't flinch. You didn't smirk. You barely breathed. In the vacuum of your reaction, they saw their own pettiness exposed. The moment you refused to be baited, you became the hunter. They stepped back, uncertain whether to laugh or apologize. That hesitation was your prize. There's a creeping urgency to regain lost control. You'll receive chains of messages at odd hours, each asking for a sign you're still human, still reachable. You'll feel the pull to prove you're not a statue. Resist. Every reply is a concession. Every read receipt, a window for them to exploit. Let your silence stretch into days, weeks. They'll spiral, haunted by the possibility that you've moved on. That possibility is more potent than any declaration of love or regret. They'll call you cruel. They'll accuse you of neglect. They'll claim you've changed. Fine. Let them. Cruelty is simply clarity without apology. Neglect is priority reclaimed. Change is the recalibration of self after too many wounds. None of their labels matter. You've replaced their narratives with your own. In every moment you choose restraint, you plant a seed of doubt in their mind. What does it take to reach you? They'll search for a pattern. They'll wait for a cue. But there is none. Feel the satisfaction of invisible dominance. The power you wield when you withhold. The extraction of respect not through force, but through absence. They learn the lesson you never delivered with words. You are not theirs. They never owned a piece of your attention. Each heartbeat you lock away becomes a monument to your indifference. And that indifference is more alive than any apology you once chased. They learn to read you like open text, mapping your smiles, your silences, your soft tones. But when you shifted, you became the unreadable cipher they couldn't crack. Remember the last time someone tried to bait you with nostalgia, invoking shared secrets under the guise of "remember when"? They expected warmth, reminiscence. Instead, you nodded once, lips pressed, and let the memory slip like sand through clenched fingers. You didn't offer context or longing. You offered absence. In that moment, you redefined the past on your terms. The shared history they rehearsed became a ghost story they told themselves late at night. Alone, feel the tension coil in your chest as you step into familiar rooms, encounters you once lived to gloss over. Now you move through them like a judge passing sentence, without uttering a word. Your glance is measured, Brief, precise, impenetrable. They try to break you with questions. What are you thinking? You offer nothing but a steady gaze. Their frustration leaks out in tremors, an eye twitch, a stammered question, a hand dropped to the table. That crack in their composure is the thunderclap they failed to anticipate. You remember every slight, every patronizing smile, every moment you smiled back to maintain the peace. But peace isn't the absence of war, it's the illusion of surrender. So you dropped the pretense. You catalogued each grievance in the quiet chambers of your mind. And when you needed leverage, you retrieved them without anger, just recall. They feel the weight of your memory like a steel door sliding into place. They know you remember. They know you're preparing, yet they don't know what you'll do next. That unknown is your blade. They begin to redefine interactions as negotiations. Every exchange becomes a chess move. They hesitate before speaking, wary of traps hidden in your calm. You're the grandmaster of unspoken strategies, moving pawns by tilting your head, castling threats within a breath. They learn to fear the space between your words more than your words themselves, because there is no safety in silence, only power waiting to strike. When they ask for clarity, you give them the truth. Your allegiance is to your own standards, not their comfort. You don't answer why, because questions deserve answers only from equals. If they want equity, they'll step into your realm and face the cost. Many will walk away, unaccustomed to the currency you demand. Good. Your dominion doesn't require a crowd, only those willing to pay respect through restraint. Think back to the last argument you diffused without rising tension. They expected fireworks. Instead, they met a placid lake. No ripples, no storm. That calm was the eye of the hurricane, and you stood at its center. In that void, you absorbed their anger and redirected it inward. They felt deflated, angry at themselves for misplacing their power. That was your triumph. To weaponize calm. To turn their fury against their own ego. Now imagine every conversation laced with that velvet iron. You speak, they listen. They speak, you observe. The pendulum of control swings toward you, not because you demand it, but because you defined the terms. You moved from reactive to proactive not by raising your voice, but by lowering your need. Let them ruminate on that. How you shifted the battlefield from words to will. They'll tell you you're cold. They'll call you distant. Let them. Coldness is the clarity of a blade. Distance is the margin that amplifies your silhouette against the void. You're not heartless, you're guarded. The fortress you built around your emotions isn't a prison. It's your command center. From there, you marshal every fragment of your intention with surgical precision. No collateral damage, no wasted sentiment. Notice how they mirror your moves now. They pause before reaching out. They calculate the value of their words. They learn to hunt for patterns in your silence, hoping to predict the strike. But you keep your strategy in shadow. You adjust dynamically, like a predator that blends with the terrain. Their anticipation becomes misdirection. Their tactics sow your opportunity. In those moments when they challenge your stillness, when they test your resolve with feigned vulnerability or veiled threats, you don't flinch, you don't engage. You stand immovable. A mountain doesn't argue with the wind it endures, and in enduring, it reshapes the wind's path. So stand unwavering. Let their efforts to uproot you fail against your bedrock. They'll never forget the first time they collided with your immovable will. They'll replay it in their mind when you're absent. And in that memory, they'll recognize that control isn't wrested through force, it's seeded in the presence of unyielding purpose. You became the measure of your own worth, and by doing so, you became dangerous. You moved beyond mere unreadability into strategic opacity. Every gesture became an enigma. A tilt of your head, a slow exhale, a shift of weight, all calibrated to broadcast one message. You're operating on a frequency they can't intercept. They once dissected your habits like a puzzle. Now they spin theories in empty rooms, chasing ghosts of intent you'll never reveal. That chase is your dominion. Remember the moment they tried to break your code by feigning crisis. A message sent at dawn, dripping urgency. I need you. They counted on your old instincts, rescue, reassurance, repair. But you slept through the notification. You woke hours later to see their read receipt blinking in limbo. No reply. No explanation. Only the cold crater of your silence. In that void, they screamed in their head, louder than any actual words. Why won't you answer me? That scream was more devastating than a shout. It was the fracture of their certainty. Imagine the electric tension that crackles when they spot you across a crowded room. They freeze, uncertain whether to approach or retreat. Their gait falters. They measure the distance between you in heartbeats because they know the space is charged. That tension was never present when you begged forgiveness. It was absent when you clung to connection. Now it ripples like static before a storm, and you stand untouched in its eye. You discovered their triggers and then disarmed them by refusing to react. The insult meant to draw you into conflict became another brick in the wall you built around your psyche. The compliment meant to curry favor slipped through the cracks of your indifference. You neither accepted nor rejected. You simply observed. That observation is a force. It allows you to see their playbook while they remain blinded by their own moves. They become predictable, an advantage you never had before. Recall the last time someone tried to guilt you. They laid out every favor you'd ever done, every compromise you'd ever made, as currency you owed them. They expected the ledger to tip in their favor. Instead, you responded with a single question. What's your price? Then you walked away. No explanation, no attachment to the past. In that moment, you auctioned your goodwill and found it worthless. Their faces paled as they realized you'd redefined value on your terms. That realization is punishment disguised as inquiry. Notice how your voice has changed. It's softer yet heavier. Words fall like weighted stones. They shatter facades with minimal effort. You no longer need volume to enforce presence. Silence now does the work. When you speak, they brace themselves. Every syllable becomes a pivot point. They wait for the next shift, the next drop in tone. That anticipation is a wager they never win, because you're already several moves ahead. They try to lure you back with familiarity, inside jokes, shared routines, photographs. You respond with an unreadable shrug and move on. That indifference to nostalgia reframes the past as something you're above. It's neither cherished nor dismissed. It's irrelevant. And in demonstrating irrelevance, you reveal the brutal truth. The past is only as powerful as the weight you give it. They feel their history with you collapse into dust. You've learned to weaponize distance, not the dramatic rupture of a final goodbye, but the incremental pull of your attention. A glance here, a nod there. Strategically rationed, they begin to ration theirs. They track your availability, fearing the famine of your withdrawal more than the feast of your presence. That hunger is your reward. They'll cultivate anxiety to earn crumbs of your attention, and that dependence cements your authority. When they whisper about you behind closed doors, they weave stories to fill the silence you left. They speak of your coldness, your cruelty, your change. But those stories betray their vulnerability. They admit they crave your light, even if it burns them. They position you as the one who shifted. But you know the truth. You merely reclaimed your gravity. They orbited your warmth until it blinded them. You stepped away and they scattered. Feel the momentum of your own gravity now. You navigate chaos by treating emotion like data. Observed, never absorbed. You assess the currents around you and move where they falter. You're not cruel. You're mercilessly clear. You don't comfort. You command. You don't forgive. You recalibrate. And in that recalibration, you become a force of nature, unpredictable, unstoppable, undeniable. Hold this as a mirror. Every reaction you deny them is a lesson they learn too late. Every withheld word is a boundary they cannot cross. Every silent verdict you render unspoken is more potent than any declaration. They'll trace their failings back to the moment you refused to engage, the moment you chose indifference over explanation, the moment you weaponized absence. That moment is your manifesto. You've mastered detachment as an art form, and now you wield it with creative precision. Every aspect of your life becomes a canvas for silent strategy. You order coffee without a trace of eagerness, as if caffeine were an afterthought. You walk into meetings with the unhurried confidence of someone who defines time rather than races against it. They feel the gravity of your indifference before you even speak a quiet admonition that their eagerness will neither draw you in nor deter you. This is power beyond aggression. It's the authority of someone who needs nothing from anyone. Consider the last time you encountered a challenger testing your guard. You observed their approach, the set of their shoulders, the flicker of ambition in their eyes. They expected resistance, a flash of ego. Instead, you acknowledged them with a subtle nod and returned to your task. That curt recognition was your decree. You saw them, yet you remained untouched. They recoiled, realizing confrontation requires mutual consent. You gave none. You maintained the unbreakable boundary between observer and participant. That inscrutability is the fortress they can't besiege. Notice how your inner world remains a locked vault. They've demanded passwords, confessions of desire, admissions of fear, fragments of your past. You smile inwardly at their fruitless attempts. Each question dies on your lips. Your silence tells them all they need to know. The door is closed. They can hammer at it with messages, calls, emotive pleas, and still they remain outside. Their frustration spirals into obsession. They become secondary characters in the narrative you control, scripted by the space you choose to withhold. You've turned each interaction into an economy of attention. Every glance, every word, every nod has currency. They crave deposits into your account, likes on posts, replies to texts, invitations to events. You distribute your attention sparingly, creating scarcity that amplifies its value. They chase your presence like a fading sunbeam in a dim room, desperate for warmth that never fully arrives. That hunger elevates you. It cements your status as the arbiter of their emotional equilibrium. They pay, willingly, for the privilege of your acknowledgement. Recall the last moment you heard someone mock your coldness. They laughed off your silence, labeled you heartless, as if it were a weapon they could wield. But you listened in silence, storing each word as evidence of their desperation. You didn't respond. Their laughter echoed hollowly against the walls of your calm. Their accusation only reaffirmed your strategy. You chose indifference, knowing it would unsettle their narrative more than any rebuttal. By not defending yourself, you reinforced the ambiguity they dread. They've tried to map your boundaries, to chart your emotional coordinates. But you've become the anomaly they can't plot. When they reach for your compass, they find you've already removed the needle. They drift, unmoored, waiting for a sign, a flicker of anger, a hint of regret, a trace of longing. They won't get one. Your autonomy is a directionless force. It doesn't depend on response. It simply is. That existential independence shatters their assumptions about connection, obligation, and entitlement. Your relationships have transformed into strategic alliances. You no longer invest wholeheartedly. You allocate involvement based on alignment with your unspoken standards. Those who respect your silence earn longer leases within your orbit. Those who don't are expelled without rancor, just absence. You don't explain. You remove them from your rhythm. That removal hurts deeper than any argument, because it speaks of finality without spectacle. They are free to interpret, but they cannot reverse it. Imagine now the ripple effect. You move through life with this unassailable detachment, and everything you touch becomes configured to meet you on your terms. They adjust their behavior, their tone, their expectations. They learn to encrypt their emotional appeals, fearing they'll be ignored. That fear magnifies your power. It's the echo chamber you've created in their minds. They replay every moment of your silence, as if decoding clandestine instructions, never realizing that your only instruction was to own your space. Here, in the intersection of absence and anticipation, you stand absolute. You are the architect of discomfort, the curator of unspoken truths, the master of unbroken intent. They may call you cold, they may call you dangerous, but they will never call you uncertain. You have redefined power not as volume, but as presence, silent, immovable, and inexorably magnetic. In this final act of body, you have become the sentinel of your own sovereignty. A final truth settles in the void you've carved. Emotion is a resource you neither spend nor squander. In the emptiness you leave behind, they find themselves constantly refueling, desperate for a spark you refuse to ignite. That desperation is your monument, silent, towering, indelible. You are neither victim nor hero. You are the axis on which their world turns, and when you cease to move, everything unravels. They will search for your warmth in every shadow, yet discover only the cold certainty of your resolve. Understand this: compassion without control is meaningless. Mercy without boundaries invites erosion of self. You have stripped away the pretense of emotional exchange and revealed the immutable core beneath. In that revelation lies the final reckoning. They see not who you were, but who you've become. An unassailable force, inscrutable and exacting. The shock of your detachment will echo in their minds long after you move on. So walk away from this moment with one immutable imperative: never fill the silence you cultivated. Let your absence remain the loudest declaration of your sovereignty. They will adapt or they will fade. Neither outcome concerns you, because you have transcended their narrative. Your allegiance is owed to no one but the fortified fortress of your own intent. In that fortress resides the only loyalty that matters, the loyalty to yourself.